welcome all. Start with the man next to me, Liam.
How you doing? You all right?
Good evening.
And Richard as well.
Yeah, evening, guys.
And on to you, Mark. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
And then last but not least, Adam. Good evening, mate.
Hi, guys. You okay?
Yeah, good. So we'll jump straight in. Obviously, we've changed ownership recently, but we'll go back to the very start when Farhad Moshiri took over the club. It was back in February 2016, and the first point is, I mean, what are your views on his time with Everton? I mean, you know, the good, bad, and ugly, really. Who wants to take the lead on that and give us your views on that? And Farhad,
I don't mind going first.
Yeah, we'll go with yourself then, Adam, first.
To me, it was kind of like the first time we'd ever had money. Like, you know, when you're a kid and you first get your first pay packet and you just blow it. That's what it seemed like. The amount, you know, you only have to look back at. I think we had about 5 number 10s on the bucket at one time, didn't we? In the one position, and it was just spending silly. I think it was a disaster, really, wasn't it? We can all agree it was terrible, but the only good thing to come out of it really is obviously the stadium. I mean, I think that'll be a shining light. That's what he's going to be remembered by. But it was just a shambles the whole way through. You only have to look at the managers that he brought in, like the likes of Rafa, and no one else. I know for a fact it was only him that signed off on that. There could not have been anybody else that would have signed off on Rafa Benitez being Everton manager. Not a chance.
Yeah, I think he had the overall say, didn't he, at the end, and the players that were brought in, and you're hearing that he sort of overruled a lot of the Marcel Brands at the time, the director of football, was overruling a lot of players. I mean, so when you've got someone who doesn't have a clue about football and he's running a football club, well, the proof's in the pudding, in it. You can see what's happened to us over the last 8 or 9 years. What's your take on him, Mark?
I think pretty much similar to Adam's, to be honest. It was one of those ones I was sat there as an Evertonian and I'd say, give us the money and watch us fly. And we, you know, the previous years before that, you read now about Moyes, the first time he was there, only having a budget of 5 million and scooting down the transfer market and, you know, pulling the likes of Cahill and Arteta from it, who absolute stalwarts of the club. And I think we'd all give our right arm to have that ability, that passion, the attitude and the drive to get Everton forward. Now, we got the money, we got the sweet shop. It was laid out in front of us, and I don't think we really had that plan of what we were going to do next. I think the proof of the pudding was we publicised probably, you know, we were one of the richest clubs in the Premier League at that time, and other clubs thought, well, we can make a bob or two out of Everton. Stuck 5 or 10 million on the price tag above players. We paid over the tops, I would suggest, for some players. And I just look back, I think, over that time, and I just think to myself, you know, the signings of the likes like Klassen, you know, physically, was he up? David Klassen, was he up to coming to the Premiership at that time? Was he physically right for it? Did he have the ability? You know, we're all Evertonians where we expect a certain brand of football from a midfielder, and I think he just looked like in that sweet shop a boy lost. You know, he had nothing that he could step up to. And I think the proof of the pudding is, you know, people talk about Goodison Park and how Goodison Park can turn very quickly. And it can do. But I think throughout all that time, we did have patience with managers. We did try, you know, at various points to try and see some form of attractive football, or how they, you know, that manager wanted to portray it. I get the point about Benitez, that was only going to end one way, absolutely. I look back now, you know, and hindsight's great, and I think you look at the likes of Marco Silva at Fulham, given a, you know, time to do what he needs to do. You know, I know everyone wasn't a fan of Roberto Martinez, but I look at it with the likes of Barkley, Morales, Lukaku, that sort of, you know, which people might say we haven't replaced them, but out of all of that, the turbulence since 2016 to where we are now, I think you look at that stadium, and it's like a gladiatorial pit when you go past it. It's massive, it's impressive, it makes you proud, and probably we'll all forget about that 25, 30 years if we're still here, and our kids will be going and go, that's the legacy of where it was. That's how we got out of County Road and we got onto Bramley Moor, because that stadium is just top notch. It's fantastic. But there's going to be people about my age and who's experienced it, and everyone that's on this podcast that's going to go, we had to fight to get where we were. We had to fight to get in that stadium. So we've had our ups and downs, as we always do with Evertonians, but we see it through. And I think to come out of it positive with that stadium, it looks fantastic.
Yeah, it does,
I'll shed a tear more than a tear when I say to Goodison, but there's no better place, I think. Some of them videos and pictures I'm seeing of Bramley Moor, it looks amazing.
Dyche, what's your thoughts on Farhad and his overall sort of time at Everton?
Yeah, listen, as everyone else has just been saying, when he first got announced as he was coming in, we were all thinking fantastic, all the money kind of in the world, but certainly more than we'd previously had. We were all looking forward to what was going to be coming through the door, or hoping that would be coming through the door. And we just seemed to waste an awful lot of it, whether it be paying off managers who were only with us for a season, or, some managers even less than that, weren't they? And wasting money on players, signing players that were still injured, didn't know if they were going to even be playing under the managers that we had. I should say, and ultimately, I think he has to take some sort of responsibility with the points deduction as well. The amount of money that we spent ultimately left us in the position that we were, that we ended up with a points deduction. We all knew what that was like. We only ended up losing 6, but at one point that was looking very, very touch and go for us. Could have certainly ended up in relegation, and we wouldn't be sat here now with the stadium. Let's be honest, because nobody want to be anywhere near us. And yes, he's going to be remembered for the stadium, but I think he's also going to be remembered for an awful lot of money that was wasted, and managers as well. For me, for my point of view.
To touch what Mark was saying before, I've always looked at Marco Silva and thought, did we get rid of him too early? And you think if he's given time, I mean, it's the old saying, isn't it? Give managers time. So you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, fortunate for him, he's gone to Fulham and they thrived under him. So it's one of those. I always look back and think, what if he stayed, would we be any better? But then again, if Farhad's pulling the strings, who knows?
I don't think anybody would do. Why you've got a person who knows money but doesn't know football is ultimately running the club. He's employed people to do the jobs, but he's not allowing them to do the jobs because he's like, I'm having final word, and if it doesn't suit me, it's not happening. Well, you could have the best manager in the world but if you're not going to let him do his job, then what's the point? You're not going to end up with the right results.
Exactly.
He got into bed with agents as well, didn't he? He got into bed with the likes of, remember, what was his name? The left winger, El Ghazi. Got into bed with his agent, didn't he? Got into bed with his agents and just started signing the wrong people.
Definitely wasted a lot of money. A lot of money.
Yeah. What are your thoughts then, Liam, on Farhad?
Well, it's nice to see we're all like-minded in our views, because sometimes you get the odd one. Yeah, so far. I think, to be fair, the only positive is the stadium, but we have to fight tooth and nail to keep it and get it to where it is now. I know some Evertonians, me included, at times wonders if we ever bothered with it, would we be better off where we are now? Staying at Goodison for a few more years. That isn't the future. I know that's not what we want. We need to build on it and grow and become a club. I look at Spurs, not right now, but the last few years when they had Conte, they had Mourinho, they were looking at Champions League final 6 years ago. That's where Everton want to be, right? That's where we want to be as fans, fighting for the top honours. Moshiri, I think he had the right mentality to do that. He come from Arsenal, don't forget. He was an Arsenal shareholder for many, many years, him and Usmanov. So it wasn't as if he had no clue whatsoever about football. Arsenal were a fantastic club, big history, went through the Wenger years. He was there all through that period. I think he just saw the money the money was out there to be earned in the Premier League at that time. City were coming through then when he was coming through. They weren't winning the titles all then. They were just starting off after their second takeover. I think he went, this is the time to take over a club. And he saw Bill Kenwright, who, let's be honest to him, he had his moments, the good times. Cheers, Bill. He saw him a mile off, I think, and I think he thought he'd get a quick deal done, which it pretty much was. Don't forget the City owners before they took over City look at Everton, and Bill wasn't taking it lightly. He wanted someone who he thought he could trust. Don't think it turned out the way he wanted it. I think he probably would have been turning his grave at times over his last year or so. You know what I mean? There's been some dark times at Goodison, real dark times. We were there at that Bournemouth game earlier in the season, and I didn't know what to think. I was at the Brighton game, thought this season could be it. Dyche was selling us this crap again. We're in a relegation fight when we got 48 points and an 8-point deduction. How is that that's not relegation form? You know what I mean? It's the same stuff, but Moshiri by then had given up the ghost, the headlock gate and all that stuff that had come out just before Southampton, which we lost at Southampton again. We always lose to the poorer teams. And if there's one legacy I think about Moshiri, all the money aside, it wasn't spent well. There's a few youngsters who come through the ranks and they've done really well, and we've had to move them on and make money on them. Onana, for instance, I rated him personally. I think he'll do really good things at Villa if he's given the chance. You look at Braithwaite, really good sign. He's now arguably maybe £100 million player in the near future. And this is what we are. We're going back from being a club with money and a bit of power from that 16 to 18 period where we bought in Pickford. We brought in the likes of Klassen and the other 4 number 10s that did not work one iota. You look at Vlasic and all them who had potential. No one's ever worked. No one's ever really hit the heights. We've never replaced Romelu Lukaku, and we've never really tried. We've relied on Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who's playing right wing back under Koeman. Don't forget, at West Brom. Do you know what I mean? This is who we had in charge of the club. There's been no football knowledge in that club from the hierarchy. And as you mentioned before, Chris and Mark and others, I'm sure we all agree, Marcel Brands had a good reputation coming from Eindhoven. He built that club back up again and challenged Ajax in a tough league for them and made them the biggest team, which they are still now. And he's back there. He's back there and he's worked wonders. He had Braithwaite in. He's kind of built him up and brought us back to it. I think the right people were in certain areas, but they weren't managed and they weren't given the allowance to actually go and do what they need to do, as you mentioned at the start of the show there.
That's the biggest problem. It's his control. Obviously, he's a businessman, so there's a certain element of control there with business. And it's like when we bought Sigurdsson for 50-odd million. I like Sigurdsson, but when you've got him on the pitch with Davy Klassen, with Wayne Rooney there, the Morales, that was a European game I was watching. We had 4 number 10s on the field, and you're thinking, it's not going to work, this. And whether Moshiri's telling the manager who to play, I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me, but I think we'll all agree that the legacy for Farhad Moshiri, forget everything, is the stadium.
100%.
100%, yeah. Shadow of a doubt.
I think before we move on, I think we're all forgetting. Obviously, you mentioned Usmanov there before, Liam. Before the war started, it didn't seem too bad. And then as soon as that Usmanov money dried up, because I know for a fact we were literally hours away from administration, and the sale of Anthony Gordon kept the lights on.
Yeah. Well, he
We
was
were hours.
bankrolled in Everton, wasn't he? Usmanov.
Yeah.
Clearly.
So obviously before the unfortunate the war started, it didn't look that bad. It wasn't that bad.
Yeah, because in 2022, Moshiri, bought more stake. He got up to 94% then, and then 2 years later, September, he's had to sell them to Friedkin Group or whoever was trying to take him out. And the war clearly had a big play on that with the Russian other gods, you know what I mean, coming in. But again, Usmanov was with Moshiri at Arsenal as well. So but yeah,
obviously he was the brains behind a lot, wasn't he? Obviously, it's obvious.
Clearly.
Yeah. Bankrolled it, didn't he?
And I think we'll all agree the worst decision ever is, other than seeing Sammy Lee on the sideline with Sam Allardyce, was Rafa coming in. And like you said before, that is totally Usmanov that. I think he just said, no, I'm doing this, and he's coming in, trying to mimic the Carlo effect. But obviously he doesn't have a clue about Evertonians and what we're like against ex-Liverpool managers. That was probably just up there as one of his worst mistakes he's ever done. We'll go on to Sean Dyche. I know he's left the club now, but I'd love your thoughts. When he first joined the club, it was 2 years ago, pretty much, 30th of January, 2023. Joined Everton, and I'll start with you, Adam. What did you make of Sean Dyche?
I think that first season, when obviously we got the points deduction, I think no one can ever fault what he did for this club. You know, he kept us up. We would have been on 46 points, and I think from where we were, you can't fault that, can you? We were hard to play against, defensively solid. You know, you can't really fault what he did, but this season was it's like a complete opposite. You look at the Bournemouth game, cruising 3-0 up on 97 minutes or 96 minutes, whatever it was, and they end up getting beat 3-2. And it's just like, where's the difference? How have we gone from being so defensively solid to not being able to hold a lead? You look against Aston Villa away from home. There's another prime example. There was 3 on the bounce, wasn't there?
Mm.
Again, it was just like a shadow of side, and obviously I don't know where it went wrong. I don't know what he was doing in training, but it was just obviously after that last season finished, you think, right, okay, we're going to kick on now. We're going to better what we did last year, and it just didn't happen. And obviously it got a bit stale. I think he lost the dressing room. I think he lost about 80% of the dressing room. You only have to look. I sit in the lower Gladys, and you only have to see Pickford's actions, because he's barking orders at Sean Dyche, and he lost 80% of the dressing room. And once that happens, it doesn't work, does it? He had the 1-to-1 with the Friedkin group, and he basically told them that he took us as far as he could. And let's be honest, as soon as that's been said, there's nowhere else to go. He's got to go.
He signed his own resignation at the end, didn't he? That was it then. He didn't want to be Everton manager. And when you're falling out with players, and the stories then come out from DCL to Patterson to O'Brien, then Moyes comes in, then it all changes, and you think, all right, so he's obviously, like you said, he lost a lot of players. Players have got mates as clicks in dressing room, so if you lose one player, you're going to lose the rest of them, and that was clear to see. Mark, what do you make on Sean Dyche's overall time as Everton manager?
I think there's 3 areas that I just want to focus on, really. I think that the rigid 4-2-3-1, no matter who we were playing, what the game management was, how we were going to either see a game out or take a game to an opponent and try and go for the throat. Dominic Calvert-Lewin was left isolated, I think, at times, and you could see the frustration and the body language from him, and the frustration. You know, people turn around and say, with regards to service, he wasn't getting it. So for me, I think being completely rigid and not coming away from that formation at times for me was difficult. The game management, and I think we just touched on it before with regards to some of the substitutions, it was screaming out at times to say it's not working, he's isolated. You know, as a centre half, if you're marking one centre forward, well, I'll take him for 45 minutes, I'll put a lump on him and take a yellow card. You have him second half. And it just demoralises that centre forward. You stick one up, you just put better one, or another option with regard to give him a bit of support and just mixed it up a bit. He was screaming for it at times. That didn't happen. And I think he's a man that turns around and says, right, you can start, you can get a point on each one. There's 38 points on the table. I'll take 38 points at the end of it. We get a draw every game. If you nick 1 or 2, then I'm going to keep it up. And I think that was his whole MO. He kept us up. I'm eternally grateful for that one in that first year. But you could just feel that undersense, that bubbling in the crowd. And I think he knew that as well. I think he was 1 game away. And I think probably people would have said to him, when this crowd turned, it's not nice. And I think he knew that was only 1 game away with the frustrations of what he was hearing from the likes of the Gladys Street from behind him. Because there's one thing about Evertonians, you can't bluff us when it comes to football, and some of the post-match interviews of trying to feed us that line of, it was, we played well today, but however, I'm not interested in that. For me, I want to see if we haven't got the players to play attractive football, I want to see a gritty performance. I want to see a heart fought. I want to see people coming off drained. But then again, if we can build on that and make it attractive, and the point which was made the second season, that was the bit that we were after. Okay, yeah. we can't, we're not conceding, but can we put the ball in the back of the net? And I think we were one game away, probably, from Goodison turning on them. And the point about Jordan Pickford's bang on. I watch him as well, but I think the body language of the whole squad, and I think that our loyalty now, it will come out in the end, but I think there's a little bit of just blind loyalty at the present moment by saying the breath of fresh air Moyes has brought in is just giving us that opportunity to just go and fight a little bit more.
Yeah, you could see the players' body language as soon as Moyes come in. I was shocked. It was total opposite, polar opposites. But I was at Goodison at the beginning of the season for something, and I was speaking with Darren Griffiths, and I was having a chat with him, and we were talking about Frank Lampard, and he said, really nice guy, really good manager, good man management, just didn't have the staff to back him up. He didn't bring proper staff in that were Premiership quality. He was under 21s. And then we talked about Sean Dyche, and you could see his face a little bit. And then a mate of mine who was there said he was speaking to Pat van der Houw, and he absolutely hates Sean Dyche. He didn't give me reasons why, he just said hates him, doesn't like him, doesn't want to speak about him. You think, well, if people have got that attitude and that opinion, what's going on in the dressing room? What's he like with the players?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it got to that point, and we're grateful. I think we all are, aren't we, for what he did, saving us with all the turmoil that come in. I think that was his job on it. That was what he's brought in to do, to save us and hopefully build on, but it didn't. Rich, what are your overall thoughts then of Sean Dyche? Is it pretty much similar to everyone so far?
Very, very similar, yeah. Sean Dyche was brought in to do a job which was to keep us in the Premier League. Sean Dyche kept us in the Premier League. He just didn't have the ability, probably that's because he's lost the change room, as you say, or people just haven't got the confidence in him to then do anything other than what he does, which is defend. The first season, we had one of the best defences in the league. We all then got excited, thinking, well, great, we've got the defence sorted now. We can now kick on. We can now start worrying about the midfield, which, to be fair, was pretty strong. You're then looking up top, thinking, well, actually, we can score plenty of goals here with the people we've brought in, the way in which the team could be set up and we could play football. We could have a really, really good season here and even have a decent cup run. It'd be nice for Everton to have a decent cup run. The last time we had a decent cup run was under David Moyes. So you sat there thinking, oh, it's going into the season thinking, fantastic. We've seen what it's like both under Frank Lampard and Sean Dyche. Hopefully we can kick on. And as we said, we just didn't, did we? We kind of went out there. This is what we did last season. This is what we're going to do this season. And yeah, I'd say players probably got frustrated with it. Backroom staff probably got frustrated with it. And 30,000 Evertonians in Goodison Park every Saturday got frustrated with it. And yeah, that's what it is. You bring Sean Dyche in, for me, you're trying to stay in the Premier League. You're not looking to do much more than that. On a really, really personal good note, Sean Dyche as a person is a really, really nice bloke. I've met him a couple of times up at Finch Farm, where I take my little lad to see the autographs. He's the only one who's ever got out the car to meet my little lad, because my little lad was so small and his car's so bloody big, he'd get out the car to have the photograph. So from that point of view, at least he has got a heart and does, believe in the fans and things. And I suspect he's decided to jump before he gets pushed, hasn't he? Ultimately,
yeah. I think you're quite right there. I think that Merseyside derby getting postponed saved him, because if we would have got a batter in there, I think he might have been sent packing then, to be honest. Obviously, he went on to do well against Arsenal, City, and Chelsea afterwards with the draws. I didn't expect that, to be honest. But yeah, like you said, he does what it says on the tin, innit? Keep you in the Premier League, and we've got.
Yeah. There are certain managers that will keep you in the league. There are certain managers that will look for cup runs. There are certain managers that will look to win the league. But even those have got to have the right people around them, the right players, the right support, the right finances. And if you're missing a key part of the jigsaw, you're not going to make the puzzle, are you?
100%. Liam, what are your overall thoughts then with Sean Dyche?
Well, I won't go over the same points because I think we've covered it, and again, I fully agree with everyone. I think everyone spoke well about us all kind of understanding what he is and what he was. He's Ron Steele, isn't he? That's he is. He's Ron Steele, basically. All I would say is what annoyed me with Dyche, because it's been asked this season, the start of the season, I think end of last season, is that defensive side. We were really good and solid, and we never actually got the credit for it, really. Not in the mainstream media. It was always Arsenal, David Raya, fantastic. Jordan Pickford deserves so much credit, I personally feel.
Yeah,
he gets all
absolutely.
the crap in the media. He's great for England, but he's absolutely fantastic for this football club.
Yeah.
And you know what? He comes as over passionate. Some people say, "Oh, he's an idiot." He's a freaking top world-class goalkeeper. He's got a young man in front of him, and Mikalenko, he's a young man. Both of them, him and Branthwaite, on that left side together. You've got Tarky and Seamus Coleman, or 39-year-old Ash Young. He doesn't need to shout at them. He's shouting at the young lads, because Pickford's not a young lad anymore. He's 30. You know what I mean? He's so experienced, 75 caps for England or more. I think he's arguably England's best goalkeeper of all time. Statistically, I'm not saying he's better than Gordon Banks or not, but still, statistically speaking. Anyway, going on to Dyche, apologies, going off on there, but going on to Dyche, he knew what he had in the team. He had half a Burnley team, don't forget. Half of them played for Burnley, near enough. He knew the players that he coming into. He got the best out of Dwight McNeil, let's be honest. He was crap under Lampard. Got the best out of Tarky for a lot of it. But this season, Tarky was crap at the start. Absolutely rubbish. He couldn't kick a football. He couldn't run. But what annoyed me the most, he didn't bring in an attacking minded coach. He never once thought about looking out there on the market and going for an attacking minded coach. Take it off him. He clearly hasn't got it. He hasn't got the attributes to go out there, all the characteristics to go, right, we're great defensively, but when it goes past that halfway line, he doesn't have, the players don't have a clue. There's no passages of play that allowed for space to be opened up. We saw against Spurs how easy it was to make a few movements, let Ndiaye do a little bit of his skill, have a cover of Mikalenko behind him if we lose the ball. That defensive solidarity is there, but you've got to expand on it. Bring someone in with some quality. And Lampard had the same problem, let's not forget. He was great passing around the back and bringing it forward. I remember West Ham's last game, we had about 70% possession. West Ham just hit us on the counter. We just couldn't get a shot on goal because we didn't know what to do when we got over the halfway line. And this is the same problem. And this is what I don't get with modern. They're happy to sign a set piece coach. I mean, how hard is it to take a set piece? And you need the quality on the pitch first and foremost. Arsenal have done great with it, don't get me wrong, and Brentford and Villa, but I think we're taking it a little bit too far. Maybe it's the progression of football, I don't know. But still, Dyche could have brought in an attacking-minded coach just to help that and give Calvert-Lewin that support. We can all see, Mark mentioned before, Calvert-Lewin has been isolated for the last 18 months, 2 years. And you know what, he gets so much crap, and I get it, because he does miss chances. But if he's only getting 2 chances a game and they're 55, 60 minutes apart, and he's only doing it on the training pitch, what do you expect him to do? We're not professional footballers. I've played at amateur level, that's it. It's hard enough playing it in a Sunday league game. Imagine in the Premier League, all 38,000 Evertonians when we're in a bad mood. It's toxic, let's be honest, and it's going to get behind the players in the wrong way. And that's, I think all that plays a part. Give Dyche his credit, well done, but I'm not giving him any more than you did your job, basically. He doesn't deserve personality. He seems like a lovely bloke, but on the Football Manager, he's bog standard. He's Sam Allardyce Mark II. He's the same as a few of the others that have come in through years. He come in and but that's not, Sam Allardyce came in, got us from 17th to 8th or 9th or whatever it was. You know what I mean? We did well, but it was horrible football to watch. And Evertonians don't want that. With Moyes, yes, it's a bit pragmatic at times, but at least we score goals and we have a little bit of attacking prowess in there. Gets the best out of what he's got, and I think we've seen that last 3 games.
Yeah. Well, that leads us on then from the Dyche era with the new owners coming in, the Friedkin group. And obviously they own Roma, so it's a multi-club ownership, which I'm always a bit dubious about. What are where their loyalties lie, you know, and what positives can that bring us, and what are the negatives around that? So I'll start with yourself, Adam. I mean, what do you think about the Friedkin group coming in? Do you reckon they're going to learn from what they've done at Roma and improve us in that sense, from a business point of view or from a playing point of view?
I'm quite excited about the Friedkin group. you only have to look at the fact that they've come in and they've cleared everything out the box, haven't they? I think we've only got one strike on Company's house now, have we? Or unless that's gone. I think the only downside of them is they don't really communicate, do they? You never see nothing in the press or a press release. So I think that's a downside of them. They don't really communicate. But I'm quite excited. I'm led to believe that they are going to try and sell Roma in the summer and concentrate on Everton because they've wanted to be in the Premier League for a long time. They just haven't had the opportunity. But as for they've saved us basically, haven't they? You know, we were days away from administration or like hours away, and then you obviously have Moshiri nearly selling to 777, which would have just been a disaster.
Definitely.
So I think it's the right people for the job. I think they're putting the right people in the place. Obviously, they've done well with bringing in Moyes because he's a safe pair of hands. He knows the club. He knows everything about it. I think the last time I enjoyed the game was under Moyes. So, I think I'm quite happy with the Friedkin group and what they've done so far. Obviously, the stadium's now been handed over. So, I'm quite happy and excited to see what the future holds, really.
Yeah, happy days. Mark, what are your views on the Friedkin group?
I just want to go back to Liam's point, which is probably the best shout, I think, that's been on here about Jordan Pickford. Yeah. I think, some of the saves he's pulled off and saved points for us, I don't want to dwell on it, but I think he needs singling out as probably the one person that's kept us in that league, to be honest. I'm really excited. I think just some of the commercial PR that they've put out, if you have a look of how proud they seem to be of waving our flag and selling our brand abroad, they seem just as excited about how enthusiastic we are about them coming in. I think sort of the opportunity, I think we've got the right people in there, naming rights for the grounds. That's an opportunity, and I think we've got the right people in place, commercially minded, to try and get the most out of that and get money into the club. I think that's a real boost as well, and I'm really eager to see where that goes. I think the cross-pollination as well between, at the moment, Roma and Everton's academy, and seeing what you can, you can swap, deal, look into, tap into, do the scouting system, seeing what you're getting. Because I go back to my first point when we first started, we always overpaid for players. You look at teams like Brighton, who've gone around and the scouting system's been absolutely, top drawer, and have pulled players in for 3-4 million, sold them for 25, 30, and I just think it's an opportunity, and they have got a blank page now, really, to say that the enthusiasm and passion of all Evertonians, I think they can match that, and I think only time will tell. I honestly do. I think I'm excited by it, and I think if they treat the club the way we treat the club and look after it and own it the way we want them to look after it, I think it'll be a success.
Yeah, I do believe that as well. The irony is, you mentioned Brighton there. I think I was listening. I think it was the chief executive was talking. It was on TalkSport or something. I was listening to it, and they were having a big chat with him. And he goes, "Well, where's your model? Where do you base your model off?" And the model was when Everton had David Moyes, and we were buying players on the cheap and turning these championship players like Sakale and finding gems out there like Stephen Pienaar, getting Leighton Baines from Wigan. That's where they base their model from. And the fact that how well they've done now, and you just think, Jesus, look how far we've fallen from that model that we had back then, and buying cheap and sort of turning them into world beaters. Yeah.
Just before you go and go off there, talk about the scouting network. David Moyes' scout is his dad.
Mm.
So it was his dad that found the likes of Leighton Baines, like Fellaini, Tim Cahill, Mikel Arteta. That's his dad. So let's hope his dad's still around and about Goodison Park at the moment.
Well, let's hope so, yeah. Because it'd be great if we can get back to that sort of. I don't want to dwell too much on the past, because you've always got to be progressive and you've got to move forward. And there's a lot of negativity when Moyes coming. We'll get onto that in a bit. But yeah, Richard, what do you make of the Friedkin group then? What are your overall thoughts on them?
Yeah, literally, it's taking bits of everyone else's conversation again, isn't it? We're obviously all singing from the same hymn sheet tonight.
Yeah.
Listen, the Friedkin group have come in. they've wiped the board clean, haven't they? They've taken the whiteboard that was an absolute mess in the directors' boxes and said, right, wipe it all off, get rid of all the debt. We're going to the new stadium. We'll bring in the new manager. We'll bring in a successful manager. And also an important piece to it, I think, is a manager that knows Everton Football Club. You know, he could have gone and bought somebody in from abroad, or they could have gone and bought somebody in from abroad, but they didn't. And as you say, if they've looked at the business model and said, right, David Moyes was the one who was heading it up last time, the business model that we're following, then great, let's bring the man straight back in. You know, he knows the club, he knows Everton's history. He seems to be passionate about the club as well. When you hear him talking, but even before he's appointed the Everton manager second time round on Sky Sports and all the rest of it, he was positive about Everton. He was clearly in talks with them at that stage. For me, anyway, he was. But yeah, you know, really, really exciting times for us to be looking forward rather than us saying, well, actually, last season we didn't do this, and the season before that we had this problem, the season before that we did. Hopefully now we can, you know, those days are gone. Hopefully we've got an opportunity for those days to be gone, and we can be saying, right, this year we've done this, right, we can now improve. We need to bring in this type of player or that type of player. The scouts need to be doing this. Can we look at some of the academy players coming through? You know, if you think back to the Carabao Cup game against Southampton, there was one player for me on that pitch that night. I was that good as some watching the game, and that was Roman Dixon. We've not seen him since, but every time he got the ball on that wing, he frightened Southampton. They didn't know what to do with him. So I hope the likes of David Moyes and the other backroom staff are actually putting Roman Dixon under the likes of David Moyes and nose and saying, we need to be looking at these guys as well. You know, we've got them; they're already in blue shirts. What can we do with them? And I just hope we are doing that, as well as looking to strengthen the squad from outside the club. Let's not forget what we've also got in the club. You know, we've got successful teams there that are winning cups in the under-21s and in the under-18s. They're only doing that because they're successful players. They've got the potential to be it. And I think it's wrong for us to automatically just say, we need to go out and spend. What have we got that's already in a blue shirt? Can we develop it?
It's having that pathway, in it. It's having that pathway from the
and in the past we've had it, and we seem to have chopped it straight away, and I don't know why, but I hope we've not. I hope that we can bring that back.
There's a huge jump, Dom. There's a huge jump from that academy football into
there is, but we've had players
team.
do it successfully before.
No, we have, and I don't disagree.
I'm not saying they bring them straight in, but let's not just forget about them. Is the point I'm saying?
Oh no,
Liam. What are your thoughts on the Friedkin group? Obviously, I know you've done quite a lot of research over the years with them.
Yeah, I've followed Roma quite closely in terms of just having a look see, because they were mentioned a while back, weren't they? And it kind of fell through. They're clever. They did exactly the same thing with Roma. I'm sure everyone's aware of that. They kind of said, "Oh yeah, we'll buy Roma," and then they pulled out really late on, and it was like, oh, panic stations. And Evertonians and Roma fans are actually quite similar, if you like. They're a very passionate fan base, old school kind of mentality in that way, how they're brought up, very kind of, the people's club kind of feel around it as well, to be fair. It's very similar, and a beautiful old stadium that's fallen to bits. So there's very, very many similarities. The difference is that they can't build a new stadium in Rome because of where it is. It's everyone knows what Rome is famous for, and it's very difficult. So as Mark mentioned before, and I think in fact Adam and Rich have all covered it as well, in terms of what they want is to be a Premier League, own a Premier League club. They've come in at a perfect time. They've seen that brand new stadium on the docks, and they're like, oh, why? What else can we do? And I think they are looking to sell Roma. The issue is, if anything, they are less knowledgeable about football other than Roma than any other owner that's American in the Premier League. We've seen what Todd Boehly did at Chelsea. Monopoly man, he just threw money at it. Billions. And you can probably say, to argue this year, it started to work. My concern is that we're certainly more Corpus Mentis, aren't we? We're all a bit more like laid back with this takeover because at the end of the day, it couldn't get any worse, we thought. And I don't think it will because they're coming and done the right things. And as I think Adam mentioned before, there's literally no debt on the club now other than what they've done and restructured it with a new loan. And the name of the company escapes me, but they're a well-known firm for holding out, against business loans on massive assets, which a football club is, regardless of which club you are, but especially a Premier League club. And always in the Premier League, and that's what I think we need to remember is that Everton never been relegated from the Premier League, and that's what annoys me with. I'm not digging out of Evertonians, but fan bases across the Premier League and other clubs that have been in the Prem. Everton have always been there. We were one of the founding members of the Football League and the Premier League. We were there. We were the top 5 clubs when it formulated. I don't care if that's 25, 30 years ago. That needs to be remembered. Just because City have come from nowhere and the likes of, Newcastle have been relegated, Villa have been relegated. Just because they've done well with what they're doing doesn't mean they're massive clubs. Villa are a big club. That's just to say they've been relegated though. We've been an ever present. And I don't think that should ever lose its importance to us as Evertonians, but also to the Premier League and how we were treated last season. I don't care what anyone says. Borderline corruption, because no one else will ever get charged again now, and it's an absolute disgrace. And they need calling out on it. The problem is now 14 Premier League clubs, I believe, are owned by Americans, and I think that's a slightly different story we can do maybe on a podcast. But I think it's something to be looked into. Is that the Premier League's changing, and now there's 14 votes that could go against the 6, whether that's the top 6 or what. It could be a change in how football is run in England. We could see an Americanized version of the sport in this country. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see us flying out to Miami to play a game other than a pre-season. I don't want it. I want to go to Goodison, or Bramley Moore every other week. I want to go to St James's Park, Anfield, and whatever, and see us play against our rivals and compete at the top. There's enough money in the Premier League. We don't need to be flying out to Saudi Arabia to earn millions, just like the Milan derby, the Super Cup did the other week. Not for me, I'm afraid. It's not for me. Going off on one, but that's what I think the Friedkin group will try and bring in along with the American owners. There is positivity there from our point of view, but I think bigger picture, longer term, we might feel not portrayed by them in any way. But I think they've got other irons in the fire, let's say, that outweigh what we expect as a football club, which I think is what they tried to do in Rome and Italian football, and it hasn't worked because Italian football was corrupt. We've seen that with the likes of Juventus getting relegated, Milan's and all that, the biggest clubs, some of the biggest clubs on the planet, and they got sent down. Even let's mention Tonali, betting scandals just a few months ago. This is all related to what Italian football is and how the American ownerships out there and the Chinese ownerships that were in Napoli, I think a few years ago. They've really struggled to have an imprint because the Italian Football Federation just won't have any say other than that. This is our football. And last thing I want to cover, sorry, I'm going on a bit, but is the ticket prices and how much money can be made in the Premier League. I looked the other day. I looked at tickets for Roma versus Napoli. Napoli are top, Roma are ninth, I think. $21 for 2 tickets. Euros, sorry, €21 for 2 tickets. 2 tickets in the main stand in Stadio Olimpico to watch Napoli. €21 for 2. I couldn't. I'm repeating myself because I couldn't believe it. We could get a flight from wherever right in there for 20, 30 quid, return, stay in a hostel and watch the game and come back after having a few bevies and whatnot, and it'd be cheaper than going to Goodison. I live 2 hours from Goodison currently because of work. It cost me 50 quid in fuel there and back. I'm paying 110 quid just for myself to go and watch a game of footy, and we usually get beat. You know what I mean? It's like make it make sense.
Just before you go on there on ticket price, I think the £35 for the FA Cup ticket's a disgrace.
Yeah, shocking, mate. It's all because it's all about money. I think Mark mentioned it before in his first piece. It was like the money was there to be made, and all the clubs have made it, and it isn't football anymore, is it? I think we've lost a bit of football. I'm not,
No.
and this is there's no dig against American ownership and American fan base. Nothing. They love the sport as much as we do, but it's not about football to us. But we still pay it because we want to go to it.
Yeah.
But if you're bringing your kids to it, I've got 2 boys, they're both Evertonians. If I go to Goodison, it's 200 quid down the drain. If we'd under Sean Dyche, I'm not being funny. I'd come to the point of going, do I want to watch his battle for a 0-0 and have no chances and spend 200 quid? I do because I love the club, and we all do. We're all clearly passionate about it, and we all know it. and you do it, and you leave the ground, and then you're like, why did I do that? That's what my initial thought is when I'm driving back 2 hours, just wanting to maybe steer off to the side. You know what I mean? It's like, what? Why do we do it? We do it because of the love of the game and the love of this club. My only fear is that they've got the right mentality. You're right, Adam, where they don't come out and they don't speak. They don't do Roma. They've said hardly anything, and they literally throw the CEO under the bus because that's what they
Yeah.
did with the lady who was the CEO for Roma. They threw under the bus with De Rossi, a club legend.
Well,
They've
wasn't
done
that
it
lady?
with Moyes now, and they've brought him in.
Wasn't that lady in talks of coming here?
There was rumours that she was coming
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
yeah, and
Thought
that
she
might
was.
be the
Yeah.
case. Yeah, that might be the case. And from so on, go on, Mark.
No, I was just saying, I think for me, and that's really insightful, certainly the amount of background you've got on Rome. And I think, but for me, just the bit that really hurt me as an Evertonian and just listening to Radio 5 live and conversations, and I think, well, I think we were an easy target to go at. And some of the statements of, well, what are Everton now? What's Everton's identity? You're just there. You just sustain yourself. You're not top six. You're not top 10. You're not middle table. What are you? You won't have a cup run. You'll go out third. And to hear them sort of things, to me as an Evertonian, was really hurtful with regards to the identity of the club and who we were, because it didn't matter who we were playing or where we were playing in the country. People were fearful of playing Everton because we knew we'd have a go at them, and at least we play attacking football. But I just think we've lost our way with the identity of who we are and the points deduction. Not that I want to dwell on it too much, but I think, I heard the comment of, well, Everton, if Everton went down and Leeds come up, or it's a Norwich or whatever, you're in that sort of band of clubs of just a rotation. And that's the bit that hurt me of the perception of where the club's at. And I think since the start of the conversation of what we've had of, those good times we've all experienced, and then, Moshiri came in and we are where we are now. We are a resilient bunch, but I think we need to get our identity back. We need to have that fear factor again. And I just think this is and I am being positive. I think it's a real springboard, new ground, new owners, new optimism, and just get the club back to where it was. That's the bit that hurts me. It's just, well, the question is, what are Everton now? Well, I know what Everton is, and you all know what Everton is. It's going to the great unwashed again and proving who we are again. And I think that's where we are.
It's like a cycle in at the moment. We've under Moyes we had going back into the early 90s, we had the dogs of war, you know what I mean? We had that resilience against teams. You're always going to get 100% out of every single player. And as fans, I think that's the minimum standard from Everton. Under Moyes, he brought us on from the bad times of Mike Walker, then Walter Smith coming up. It was dreadful again, and he brought us to a level where we're like, this is Everton. Do you know what I mean? Now we're going to compete, even though we haven't got a big budget. We're going to compete against these top clubs, and we're going to get to an FA Cup final. We're going to finish fourth. I'm not going to talk about the Villarreal game because I'll go off on a tangent with that one, but we were that club. We were fighting with Aston Villa at the time for fourth and fifth for many a year. And then you think, like we've said, Moshiri comes and you think, right, well, this is what we want. We're going that. And I remember saying at the time when Moshiri came in, I was worried that he was going to chuck a load of money at it and we were going to do a Leeds United, and I was panicking about it. And then over the last few years, I've been sat there like going, oh dear me, I can't cope with this anymore. You know what I mean? You see all the protests going on, but then you see on the flip side, took my mother-in-law to watch the Chelsea game when we beat them 1-0, and the fans were fantastic. Blue smoke everywhere, and you think, well, that's what Everton about. It's the fans that are Everton, and that's what gets the players through, the club through in the dark times. My worry moving forward with the Friedkin group is that we go into a new stadium and we need to build on it. We need to have that foundation, and we need to build them on top of that foundation and progress. My worry is, if it's not done correctly, we could end up 10 years down the line being back where we are now. So they've got to get the right people in place to know how to run the football club, but also bringing Moyes back, bring some of the people who know Everton, who know what it means, ex-players who've been there and done it and know and can guide the club in the right direction. And I hope that is something that'll happen moving forward, because we can't lose our identity, and we can't be sold. We can't sell our souls to the Americans, and we can't be end up going to playing the 39th game in America just to make money for the American ownership, because we lose everything then. But let's hope it doesn't come to that.
I
Just to
think the
go
key
back,
to be. So go on, Adam.
sorry, mate. Just to go back to that identity. I think you're right, Mark. We haven't had an identity in a long time. You've only got to look at the likes of, you've got Colin Chung, who's not a CEO, running the club. It was rotten from top to bottom, and I think that's where we failed. And again, that comes back to Moshiri. You're looking at Sean Dyche. He's never understood us as fans. He's never understood any of us as fans. So that was only going to end up one way. Rafa, again, stupid. So I think we've lost our identity from top to bottom, because I'm led to believe our academy is bottom of the barrel when players are choosing. So you got your Man City, Liverpool, round this area. Obviously, you got your Man City, Liverpool, your Man United, and then we're the bottom of the barrel. So there's no comparison to the players that we're getting through at the moment. It's not the same. And I think that all comes down from the mentality of the people at the top, which has now changed. Hopefully, it's going for the better, and everyone underneath. And I think a bit of the blame has to come to the door of what's his name, the sporting director, the new one.
Oh, Kevin Towell.
Yeah, I think some of the blame's got to come to his door as well. It's got to,
Yeah.
because what we've been bringing in hasn't been good enough. You only got to look at Jack Harrison at the moment. Not good enough.
That's what we've become, haven't we? Over the years, we bought substandard players and had substandard ownership model, which, if you buy substandard food, for example, you're going to get substandard quality. To use that analogy, if you go to a posh restaurant, you're going to get a certain level of service. And at the moment, like you said, from top to bottom, it's been horrendous. And let's hope it can change. We just got to remain positive now.
Just before Rich jumps in, but as Mark mentioned before, though, when we had that with Moyes, you didn't know who you were signing, because he was getting youngsters in from lower leagues and giving them a chance. I'm not saying that's the model. It's a model to look at. Instead of just losing the English league, now let's look overseas. Let's look at Brazil. Let's look at Italy. Let's look at France. Let's look at Europe and even Asia. All these players are out there, and you see all that Matoma. Where did he come from? You know what I mean? Could anyone on this tell me where he signed from? It's ridiculous. Other than the Minter, because he was at Feyenoord, I think, last season on loan under Slot, and he was a Newcastle player on the books, but then he's never actually played for Newcastle, that Northern League. Might have had a cup game, but we were linked to him at 40 million. It's like, what? Why? We haven't got the money to spend 40 million. Why don't we go and look at someone else who's in that league, in the lower echelons of the Dutch league, and see if his stats were similar? I agree with Adam to a degree. I think Thelwell, he thinks he knows what Evertonians want. They want a youngster who's got some potential. Of course, we all want that. But it doesn't mean we have to know that he plays in Lyon, like Neymar at Lyon now. I mean, he's 20 odd 30 million. He's got one goal. I'm not being funny. Potential shows more than that in any league. Cahill was Millwall's best player. He got to the final, right? He got to the final, semi, final.
Against Man United.
Got beat by United.
Against
Man
Man United, wasn't it?
I think it was, yeah. But he was brilliant. He was brilliant that season for them. That's when Millwall were punching above their weight in the Championship and probably could have got to the Prem over a couple of seasons. But don't forget, even Moyes himself was a Preston manager, got him promoted from now it is League One to the Championship, and did really well. And Bill Kenwright, fair play to him, and probably others in the club at the time, who had a little bit more nous and a little bit more of a common sense approach. Well, let's give him a go. Let's give him a young manager a go, like you would now with what Brighton are doing, Hertzler, what others are doing. Even Iraola at Bournemouth, he had a shocking start, one win in 10, and everyone's like, get rid, and now look at me,
Lion
beat third in the table. Forest do it. This is what we know. And you're right, all of you said, and I said it myself. Marco Silva was the one that got away. 100% he was. I don't care what anyone says. The style of football he plays is fantastic, but it's also got a pragmatic side. Just because we went to Anfield and got beat 5-2. Gee, come on. We lost 2-1 to a Leicester side who had not long just won the league. Last minute, and Mina slipped over and they went through and scored. It was so cutthroat from Moshiri, because he had no idea he got rid of players. And we just need to be
But
careful of what we wish for at times. But
don't
as
forget,
Evertonians know,
Marco Silva lost at Idrissa Gueye, didn't he? After his first season there, he went
True.
to Paris Saint-Germain, and at the
True.
time he was superb. So obviously there's some things
Yeah.
that was out of his hands. Rich, what did you want to come in and say before, mate?
I was just going to say, I think for me, looking at it as both an Evertonian and somebody who's in the business world, you almost, to have a successful club, you need to have kind of two arms to the club, and that you need a footballing arm and you need a business arm, and then you need somebody sat in the middle that not can control both, but is aware of both. And when we're trying to do something from a business side, like a naming rights, we've not got footballers getting involved in it. When we're trying to sign players, we've not got the business heads trying to get involved in it. And it's about having that right person in the middle. And I think we've slipped up on that in the past. And if you look at the successful clubs, and even we keep going back to Fulham now, I think they've got it right at the moment. And I think they've got it right because they've got the right people doing the right jobs. And if it's not your job, then they're not involved. And it's as simple as that. And I think Everton used to be like that. And I think Everton can get back to being like that. But I just think at the moment, I think we've all touched on it, we're just not doing that at the moment. We've got managers who can't sign players. We've got directors who are in bed with agents who are making the decisions for the managers. They're bringing players in. And the managers don't even want the players. So they're not going to get anywhere near the pitch. And it all boils back to what we all agreed at the first time. We've just wasted so much money. And I think in order for us to be successful and get back to being the team that we were, we do need to have, right from the top down to the bottom, it's all rotten. We need to cut it all out and start again. I think if we are going to rebuild and we do want to be successful going forward, and it's going to take a little bit of time. We're not going to get it all in the right place for next season or even the season after. But I do think a modern day football club, whether it be in the Premiership, the Italian League, the American League, wherever, you've got to have two arms to it, because it's gone are the days now where it's just a football club. It is a business now.
Yeah.
And in order to be successful, you need to have the two arms working side by side for me. And I think there were some clubs who are still struggling. I think Everton are one of them at the moment. But we've got a good opportunity here now to, with the money, with the backing, to get that one right. And hopefully, as I say, we'll be back to the good old days, and Bromley Moor Dock, or whatever name it's going to be, is going to be an old lady once again to be reckoned with, and players won't look forward to coming to play at us because they know they're going to have 40,000 fans on the back cheering from the minute the whistle goes to the 97th minute, or however many extra minutes we've got to play nowadays. But I think in order to be that, we've got to get it right at the club.
Yeah.
I think the only thing currently where I'm scratching my head is Charlie Adam, set piece coach.
I don't understand that one.
Do I get that?
He's a Scot, isn't he?
Moyes wanted him years ago when he was at Blackpool. Remember, he wanted to sign him, and obviously they might have, something together like in that way in the football world. But I'm baffled by that one. He's just been sacked, and then you get
Fleetwood got sacked from Fleetwood, didn't he?
Yeah, been recently sacked.
I just want to touch. I know it's very. I'm actually gutted for the lad, Ola Mangala.
Yeah,
because he's been absolutely excellent since he came in, and I'm devastated for him because he's been brilliant. And I know, obviously, Tira about him. He's only a young player, so he looks like he's going to be the business. But again, he's got to be nurtured, like obviously David Moyes to the Rooney, and he very early. But again, he was a man at 16, wasn't he? Let's be honest, he was something else.
And I think sort of running in towards the derby and that, I was looking forward to seeing him get across the ground and covering them, them midfield places and putting a fight up as well. And I think he had that in him as well.
Yeah.
I think it's really disappointing because I think he would have shone in that derby. I think he would have had the stage to absolutely shine. And I'm gutted for him. I think when you see him go down against Brighton and you see him wincing the wince on his face. I think everybody thought.
Yeah, they
that's
knew,
not
didn't they?
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is
And
a real shame, like, because he's since he's I didn't expect too much from him, to be honest, when he first joined, and then he's grown so much. Him and Garner have been doing really well in the middle, and it sort of gives Garner a bit more flexibility, shall we say, because he can get around the pitch a lot better.
he was outstanding against Brighton. Gone
Mm.
again, outstanding.
The
Led
whole
him nearly
team,
to life,
the
I
whole
think.
team looked fantastic against Brighton. To be fair, considering what had happened a couple of hours before kickoff, I mean, they looked.
I think going back onto the point of David Moyes, he's just given them a freedom, hasn't he?
Yeah.
There's a freedom to get higher up the pitch. He's given Jai a freedom to express himself. Dominic Calvert-Lewin seemed like he was getting back to his old self until we found out he was made of elastic again. You know, it's just a shame because he looked like he was getting back to his best. Obviously, he didn't. Him and Dyche, it was well known that they didn't like each other, and it's just a shame now that that quite possibly might be his last game in blue for Calvert-Lewin, unless he signed his contract, which I'm led to believe he's got no interest in doing. Because he at times he's been brilliant for us. You only got to look at the likes of when he was under Ancelotti and he was just firing them in for fun. So I think it wouldn't be nice to see it end on a sour note, but like you said, it's a business now, isn't it? It's all about agents getting their fees and players get without having to you get their own sign-on bonus and fees. So it's a shame, really.
I think the mentality for some of the players has also changed over the years. I'm taking it away from Everton. You've only got to look at what's his name at the moment from United. Just doesn't want to play for them. He's on £300,000 a week. Rashford doesn't want to play for them, and you just think if you think back to when Everton was absolutely rocking them, the players weren't like that. It was a pleasure for them to wear the badge, and they valued wearing the badge on the shirt, not just at Everton, everywhere. But then the modern day player, I think if he doesn't want to do it, then he doesn't go and talk to the manager. He goes and talk to his agent, doesn't he?
It's a generation thing. I don't want to sound like an old fart or anything like that, but it's a generation thing. They don't have the there's no respect, clearly. But back in the day, you'd have your YCS, you'd be cleaning boots, you'd be doing all the jobs. Kids don't do that now. They're fed everything they want as soon as they're in that football club, which is wrong because you don't learn any, you don't have anything about you, you don't have any discipline, you don't have any respect, you don't learn all that. And I think them days are gone now, the likes of Alex Ferguson, maybe Moyes to a point back in the day because he did rule the club with a fist iron to a certain degree, and then obviously he's matured and he's adapted over the years. There's a lot more player power now. But let's go on to David Moyes then. I'll put it out to the room. I mean, I've seen a lot of negativity. I can see both sides why, but I think my personal opinion, he's gone away. He's learned, he's matured. He's won a European trophy, regardless what you think of the Conference League. Done well at West Ham. Their loss is our gain. That's my opinion, and I think he'll definitely, hopefully, change our fortunes, and we'll be pushing up the league. But I'll put it out to the room.
I think you've only got to look at West Ham's reaction. They didn't want him to go, and you've only got to look back. Where are we? Where have we gone? And where did he go? He's won a European trophy, like you said. And now we're back fighting relegation. So we've only gone backwards, and he's gone forwards. So I understand why people didn't want him. There's quite a lot of young Evertonians now that don't really know what he was about and the way we played and the European competitions we're in. He had us in Europe nearly every, apart from maybe 2 seasons. We were in Europe, fighting for Europe all the time.